Our next session is on the topic, where is the money? This session sounds extremely interesting. I mean, what exactly are we going to talk about in this session? What are the monetization strategies that publishers can look to? So for this session, I'd like to invite our moderator first, Ms. Janine Stein, Editorial Director for Content Asia. Let's welcome her, please. Our panelists for this session are Mr. Abhinav Kumar, Strategic Business Management, Media, India, Akamai. Let's welcome him, please. Mr. Karan Gupta, Chief Executive Officer and Beyond Media. Mr. Sameer Bangara, Co-founder and Managing Director at Kyoki Digital Media. And Ms. Pooja Chaturvedi, Industry Lead Media and Entertainment, Adobe. Let's welcome her, please. I'm going to now hand this session over to the moderator.
Thank you very much. I know it's, we're running slightly late, but we do have a really interesting conversation. Where is the money? So thank you for joining us so late in the day. You've all been introduced, so I will jump right into the reason that we're all here is, where is the money? So it's a question I'd like to pose to each of you before we get going. What are the monetization strategies you think publishers can look to? Soundbite.
So monetization strategies, I mean, publishers have generally been always looking at some of the easy pickings in the world that is available to them in terms of monetization. There have been huge digital platforms that are also pervasive in the internet today, be it video, be it social or whatever. And publishers have generally jumped onto the bandwagon of adopting these digital platforms and using them as their monetization strategies. But moving on, publishers really need to be focused on things which are internal, which are platforms that they develop on their own, they build on their own, they curate the content on their own, they attract audiences on their own. Because in this fast-moving world, you can't rely your entire stakes on a few platforms and then just hope that everything works on as expected and keeps moving forward.
So you're basically saying a lot more energy on the part of publishers.
I completely second that. In fact, the most important strategy is to have a strong strategy and stand by it, not have a reactive one. So much change happening today with some of the big guns making, changes, strategy changes, algorithm changes, and publishers are always either banking on them or relying on them or reacting to that. And I think that's something that should be only a part two of the action that the publishers perform to react to this. But as a whole, it's important that whatever they define as monetization, stick by it and like Abhinav said, it's try and have ownership across the board, especially when it comes to technology, content ownership and distribution, and most importantly, audiences.
Right, so define your strategy and stick to it no matter what.
So I missed that. So just to learn from that, so where is the money you're saying actually? I've got a view on it, but where is the money effectively? So staying 360 you're saying, but where's the money actually coming from today? Do you have a sense of that? Or what's your view on that?
So I think what I was trying to say is more towards, not really banking on a lot of the big guns, because I think as much as we all know that, they might be really ruling the market, but at the end of the day, the publishing business itself stood for the fact that, they could have ownership of the content and monetize it across, monetizing it across their own users as opposed to, I would say, support from someone else's users. Right. And then, yes, obviously, existing in an ecosystem where someone is creating audiences in a social environment or say a video environment. But yes, as a publisher, making sure that you take primary control of your own ecosystem, of your own content, and have users where you can literally take insightful decisions on how you want to show advertising, what kind of context you want to create in that advertising and content ecosystem, as opposed to relying on someone else to take that decision for you. So typically, the money is still in the fact that the ecosystem you create is owned by you, and is that's your primary, and then the other guys can probably be the support mechanism for it.
Where do you think the money is?
Can I just ask the board, can we get some more feedback? I can barely hear the people. I don't know if you have the same problem. It will be difficult if we can get some feedback from the speakers.
So after
No, what I meant was the audio feedback. I can't hear their voices back in the...
Sorry. Oh, sorry, I didn't hear that.
So, but I'll go anyway because I think the audiences can hear us. So essentially, from my perspective, if you don't mind, Janine, I just wanted a quick dipstick. Can you just raise your hands? How many people are content producers in this audience? You're content creators? Okay, awesome. And how many are corporate content creators, as in not on their own, but as part of an agency or a creative outfit? So I think, and I come from that side of the business also, but I think fundamentally, what I wanted to put out there is, I think the nature of the publisher has changed so much in the last few years. I mean, people have been saying this for the longest time, but the publishing, the old school publishing, or the incumbent publishing model still exists. Whether you have a big player, whether it's Woot or Hotstar or a platform like YouTube, and then there are publishers sitting on top of some of these platforms. So a YouTube type of platform would be open to other publishers coming on board. But I think the model, just like you have, if you have the largest hotel chain being an asset-light hotel chain in Airbnb, or a taxi company that doesn't own cabs, can we actually have an asset-light media model? Which fundamentally then means that you shed a lot of the typical thought processes of ownership of studios, ownership 100% of the content, because fundamentally what the problem for everybody is, everybody wants the view. And the view is basically the consumer. So if you're going to play the game of the view and the consumer, and if you've got $100 million backing you or $1 billion company backing you, then you go one way. And that's the right way to do it when you've got that backing. But if you are somebody who's kind of starting up with limited capital, then that is a suicidal way to go down that path, because you have a hit, video hosting costs are going to kill you. How do you acquire the next customer? So whether you're an e-commerce player or selling soap, the cost of customer acquisition is critical. So the cost of customer acquisition in the ownership of the platform model is insanely expensive, and is a lot of invest for a very long period before you can actually reap the reward. So before you come to monetization, if one thinks of this, is there an asset-light model wherein you can acquire the consumer and then worry about monetizing? Because in the absence of the consumer, there is no monetization. So if you go down the path of I need to own the end destination, the flip I'm talking about is, can you be a destination and platform agnostic media entity or publisher, and therefore acquire a large asset base of consumers across multiple platforms? But that's where the story starts. It doesn't end there. If you build a business dependent on that, as you rightly said, you'll be dead, because some policy change and CPM rates across platforms can crash by 50% before you can say Jack Robinson, and so you can't be entirely dependent. But if you harvest a customer base on multiple platforms, and then you can convert a percentage of that, anywhere between 5 to 15% onto your owned and operated platforms, therein lies a model where you can then premium monetize one. And as far as the models are concerned, it's fairly simple, but we'll state it. It's advertising video on demand. It's kind of money that you would make on platforms, and that is now in the range of 6 paisa, roughly 6 to 8 paisa per view. And then depending on what ref share and fill rates you have, maybe you get 10 paisa per view, but your fill rates are only 20%. And so you see that you're only effectively making 2 paisa. All right? So people will swag the rate and say, it's $5 and $8 I'm making on my content, but nobody talks about the crappy fill rates that I'm getting right now. Because the great problem that we've had, and I'm sorry I'm taking a little bit of time, but I think it's great, just another 30 seconds, maybe less. We've had a fantastic problem the last 18 months, which is the problem of growth. The kind of growth that we've all seen across, if anybody's running any publishing platform, whether it's an OTT player or even folks like us, we've seen massive growth in content consumption, which is fantastic. However, as a function of that, there has been a decay in the earnings on an AVOD, advertising video on demand basis. Whether you're a gaming company or a video content publisher or anything, you've seen a decay in that monetization because there's so much excess supply of inventory. But it's a good problem to have because this is hopefully going to pan out. So if you've got an advertising video on demand, you've got a subscription and a transaction video on demand business model, you can depend on the other pieces because you're building popularity in one place and then monetizing elsewhere. For us, we do a few 100 million views, maybe 500 million views a month, but only 15% of our revenue actually comes from AVOD. 85% comes from other sources of income, whether it's brands, or whether it's events, whatever it is. But that 360 model, that would not exist without the first piece. So it's fundamental to our existence. But this first piece is not a great generator of income long term. Sorry, long answer to a short question.
It was a good answer. I'll move, and we'll come back to some of the points you made. I'll move to Pooja. Where are you seeing monetization moving? And what would you like to see publishers do?
I would second Karan on this, on the ecosystem part. So historically, Adobe has been part of the content creation. Now we have some purpose, we understand the purpose and we understand the context, why the content was created. So we have been part of that journey. Now once the content is set in place, it is extremely important as a publisher, as a OTT platform, to monetize it. And for monetization, while your SVOD, AVOD, TVOD comes into place, it is extremely important to have a very robust audience segmentation. There is where you know your audience better. Now, who are these audiences? Whether they like it, they're liking my content, or they're not liking my content. We feel, we were just having a backstage conversation on monetization bit, and we said, India is an evolving market. There is no piece of contention where we say, people are not ready to pay. People are ready to pay. The point is, who's ready to pay? Are we targeting the right audiences? So segmentation of the audience, predicting these audiences will pay, plays a major role. So this is right from the context of Karan. Thank you.
Now that we've asked all the panelists where they think monetization lies, I'd like to ask the audience, so this is a red and green question. We've come up with a very politically correct way of asking this, but essentially it's the big boys take 85%, leaving 15% for everybody else. Are you, that was my comment. The official question is, are you happy with the way your content is being monetized today? Yes for green, no for red. Wow.
There's one,
wow.
there are 3 greens, 4 greens.
Wow, there's 1, 2, 4 greens.
50 reds.
I can't read, I can see 2 only. Anyway, so it's overwhelmingly, we're not happy.
We should bring the 4 greens on the stage, I think.
What? I can't hear.
Do a special interview with the green people.
There's only 2, that's going to be a short interview. I could only count 2, you counted 4. I think that was pretty clear. People are not happy. There's certain things, obviously, that are systemic, that are ecosystem, that are beyond their control. What you're basically saying is take control back. Where's the first place people could start? I know there've been easy pickings, but the road towards real monetization is going to be really, really hard. The solution sounds easy to say. What is your solution? There's a 4-point solution.
There is no shortcut. As we are saying, nobody's happy with the way their content is being monetized today. That does not mean that the future is bleak, it is dark. It just means that we need to think a lot more strategically compared to what we are doing today. There are no easy pickings moving forward. We've all enjoyed while the things last, and that does not go to say that things are coming to an end as we speak. Things are going to change. Are we willing to adapt to it is the whole point. Are we able to shore up our own technology in a way where we are able to meet the demands of the end user who is maturing, who wants content, who is spoiled with choices, who can move away from one platform to the other platform at the flip of an app switch? But still, if you provide him the right content, if you curate the content for him, if you customize the content for him, and if you ensure that the content is available, it's secure, it's scalable, and it's it is there 24/7, he is willing to come back to your platform and spend money, as Pooja mentioned, or ensure that you get the advertising dollars that we all crave for.
Technology. Can I just switch for a minute? Availability, scalability, performance, and security. There's no question in my mind that a lot of people who we know have been, it's easy pickings, have gone with the easiest route, may have to drop out of the environment now that the road is much more difficult. Do you see a lot of the potential players having to drop out because they just don't have the money to back availability, scalability, performance, and security?
That is unfortunately a negative statement that we all should discourage making out over here. Right. I think that there is still there'll still be huge platforms available for the smaller players to adopt to and grow from there. It's not, nobody's asking a new content creator to come up with $1 million and start building up the platform from day one. It has to be a very planned approach. The whole point that I want to make over here is the fact that people have been taking the easy way out and not developing things on their own as they speak. You should have milked the money while it was available and built up your technology or built up your content as we speak. I mean, not overlook one for the other.
So, and we've got two big tech players. Are the tech players ready to work with smaller operators to grow the ecosystem so that the 15% can become 30% or 40%? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I mean, the market is saturated with the big guys. Every tech player is going after them, but I believe that the next big guys will come from the smaller players. So we as a tech provider have to be flexible enough to provide them the technology, provide them the support as and when they require.
Got it. I'll move to Pooja because you're the other big tech person on the... how much money is there for the smaller players? And what do you bring into the table so that smaller players have the wherewithal to fight in the new environment and a new, very big changing environment?
Well, I'll answer this question a bit differently. There are 2-3 parts to reaching out to my audience or an end customer. A lot of content owners are here who produce the content. And as Ekta very rightly put it across today, that we can have an amazing story, right? The quality story could be great, but the infrastructure needs to be empowered so that it reaches the right audience. Now, when it comes to money, if I have a great content, right, I need to build up infrastructure to reach out to that medium. India is an evoluting market. I mean, evolution is taking place, is developing, long way to go. Today, stating that, there are only big guys, I would say there's a place for all. There might be in future, there would be some mergers and acquisitions, which we have seen past few years, but there is a place for everybody.
So even though there's consolidation, you are
yes,
confident
why not?
that there's a place for everyone?
Absolutely, yes, why not?
Sure. And do you have an answer?
So what would be the minimum ticket size? And the question is to both of you, the two big tech players, for a startup to engage with you. So let's say somebody is doing 100 million views a month, and they want to transfer that to their own platform. They expect that kind of traffic. What would be their ticket size to engage on the analytics side with Adobe for the audience segmentation, and from the hosting mirroring side with Akamai? What would be that ticket size?
Ticket size.
Engagement model. How much would it cost per month to do that? What would the range be?
The first thing that you and I right after this conversation, you and I should talk about it outside the room. We'll definitely.
Is it that big a number, or is it that small a number? but is there some? But
No.
we need one more mic
So-
here.
so-
Yeah, we need to.
so the-
Share, we need to talk like this. So basically, he's asking you, how much does it cost a small guy?
So, as I mean,
'Cause you should have been on the panel with YouTube and Voot, because they can afford it. We're talking about now, if you're
Exactly.
a up-and-coming content producer,
Exactly.
well, like I said, we're doing
Right.
upwards of $500 million a month, and
Right.
we're a mid-sized player,
Right.
okay? Because we are focused on working with creators and not getting sort of, film content and stuff
Right,
like that,
right.
or catch-up TV.
Right.
So what would it take to engage? If it's going to be upwards, or give us a range, is it going to
Right.
be upwards of $10,000, $20,000 a month?
So it all depends on how much engagement are you driving, how much content are you pushing.
I'm saying
And,
100 million views a month. Let's take a small player. What would it be?
again, it depends on, there are a lot of variances that you really cannot answer.
All right,
over
we'll
here.
do it offline.
Yeah.
Okay, how about you? Audience segmentation. What would it cost? Because you need to know. Otherwise, this is
it's
we're
a
just
fair-
saying
it's a
this.
fair question.
What's the
But I agree with you. How much does it cost to engage a small guy, or the small
Yeah.
guy is going to go away?
It is a fair question, because when a small guy is trying to look out, that's the first point is in mind. Is there a point for me to approach somebody who's being used by some of the bigger players in the market?
And the great thing for you guys is that it seems like it's out of reach. So if it is within reach, it needs to be like flashed on hoardings that you can
Right.
afford
Right.
Akamai and Adobe
Right.
audience segmentation
Right.
in this much
Right.
money.
So as an
If it-
example, on Akamai today in India, we have customers who are paying maybe 50,000 rupees a month. We have customers who are paying us in crores a month. And we are meeting their requirements in whatever way possible. It is totally dependent on what kind of model are you looking at, how do we partner with you to scale up.
So
your
you have
business
customers
requirements.
under 1 lakh a month also?
Yes.
Okay. At the scale of that we talk, anyway, we'll take that.
Yeah, we will get there.
Thank you for the
Are you going to send a
question.
term sheet next?
So I was being a lot more polite, but thank you for that question, because actually I think it's a very key
It is.
issue. The ubiquity
Yeah.
of Google makes it very easy
Yeah.
for people to enter the market.
Exactly.
And now that the barrier to entry is going to be a little bit
Right.
higher, are people here going to have to go away? So
And,
really
and,
that's
and
what it
when you as a content provider, you also need to look at the fact that are you going to get better ROI by providing content on your own? And then it doesn't have to be always a cost model. Are your top lines improving because of doing it on your own, or going your own way, or developing your own technology? That has to be measured. I mean, some of the big, over the past year or so, some of the biggest YouTube players have moved out of some of the video platforms that we are talking about. Why is that so? It is because of the fact that
People pay for good content.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't
If
have
I
to be
can
in
turn the
big
conversation
ecosystems.
here if I can turn the conversation to that, people will pay for better content.
Exactly.
But when we were speaking before, you said, what does better mean? So in your mind, define the problem first. Do I want to be better? Do I want to be bigger? How?
So better in the sense, you know, better quality of content, better quantity of content, better users, qualitative, quantitative. So when you say better monetization, it's quite broad and subjective. But yes, just to sort of give indications to the conversation, and just so that it's more insightful. From an audience standpoint, you know, more relevant users who know that they're coming back for the content that they want to consume. So, you know, building that better, building the content quality better. Like, so the content itself, depending on what your publishing business is, be it what vertical it is in, and then, you know, having the right tech and better tech to make sure that analysis on top of it, all these three things can better the fact that you can gain more revenue from the people, and expect brands or anyone else to put in more money into the ecosystem, because what you're doing better is actually giving them all the right legs of, you know, pushing the content out, the right touch point of the relevant content, and then giving back the fact that, you know, what happened with it, what was the engagement, and then you don't have to rely on third-party players to build the distribution. But the key thing is that stating the better of what that better is for you, and then approaching it in that manner and building that out individually, as opposed to having a very generalistic strategy and then saying, you know what, let me just go to this place where 85% of the world exists and go and put my content and let's hope something happens. I think it's a lot of hard work, like Abhinav said, right? There's no shortcut to it. But if you can do that better, each one of these things. Audience, your own tech, and the quality of your content in your own ecosystem. It's sort of a long-drawn strategy, but if you stand by it, there is definitely merit in that.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm moving and creating better content. Kyuki, now we can ask you questions. You have to give answers. You can't answer my question with a question. Done. Okay.
I'm the only one who gave a rate
No,
per
and
video.
I love your questions. You did what?
I said you can make between 6 to 10 paisa a view. That's the bottom line. If you have a video view, you can make 6 to 10 paisa a view. I mean, I think people need to know that. That's the only concrete answer we've given so far.
Because you're willing to share.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I think there have been concrete answers.
I don't know. I'm from the industry and I'm grappling to figure out what they're saying.
So tell us, is that an industry standard, the 6 to 8?
No, it's what you can make on Google off of YouTube, and each one would be different.
And
but
what
that's
would you
the
like to
ballpark.
make?
It's not a question. Listen, people all over the world are unhappy with the ad monetization. It's a function of greed and supply. So if you go to the States, which is 10x of India, maybe 8x of India, people are unhappy with the ad rates there also. So
what would you like to see? What would you be happy with?
Okay, so the balance is a function of what you invest and what you're making on it. So if you can actually effectively make 10x of that, it starts funding good production. Because everybody's about, you need to invest more money in production to make this. So you cannot reap the investments in production unless you're doing at least 10x of what you're making today. At least, if not more. And then if you take up, because production is a never-ending sort of, you can go higher and higher. So at the base minimum, it's 10x. But it's not going to happen. It's not the fault of Google's or Facebook's that the monetization is low. The brands need to move in. I mean, because everybody talks about this whole digital revolution, and they'll say that we'll increase the digital ad spends by 35%, but it's firstly, digital is only 10% of the total AdX, and of that you're increasing 35%, 95% of that goes to search and display. So where is the content marketing going? Nowhere. Content marketing was under 150 crores last year out of 10,000 crores spent on digital. So, we talk about at these conferences about how content marketing and content consumption is fantastic, and it's the future, but it's not even a drop in the ocean of the total AdX. So that needs to change, and automatically the monetization will improve. So if digital consumption has grown 350%, how is it justifiable that you increase your digital budgets by 20 to 30%?
A recent Dan report, by the way, day before yesterday, just said video is going to be the fastest growing medium. Search is going to drop over the next 3 years. So it actually goes well in the fact that, content creation is video heavy. And if it can lean towards that, right? So that can really help this 6 paisa becoming 60 paisa someday.
Everybody's on the same page. It's this lag between actual execution and I think TV is fantastic. I'm not a believer that, digital should scavenge from TV. I think there's an existence, and as TV moves to digital, you'll be seeing, YouTube and Facebook on your connected TV eventually. So I think that platform's fantastic. But if we just reapportion what we're spending on, for example, I think display advertising is a waste of money. That 5,000 crores going to display advertising should go, at least half of that should come to content in one fell swoop. And there's enough people who can make that content. There's no dearth of supply or creators. But it's not going to happen. I know, I'm not fooling myself. I'm a realist. I have my head in my clouds and feet in the ground. So, yeah.
So obviously, you can see where you want to go. What are you doing today, tomorrow, in the next 6 months, in August and September, to increase that by 10x?
Look, for someone like us, so we work with, we love Google, we love Facebook, and I think for a startup, for us to grow our audience, the fundamental thing for any content player is growing your audience base. So if you talk to the folks who are running their OTTs, they're spending the money to grow their audience base on their platforms, and there is that model. It's like saying, am I in this market to make a TV series or a web series or a motion picture, right? So your budgets are going to be different, and it's not like the motion picture guy is an idiot. There's a business model for that. But most people will be in this space because not everybody has the backing of multi-billion-dollar corporations or hundreds of million dollars in funding, right? So if you're coming through this route, then you've got to first build the audience base. You can only build the audience base, you can fish where, you can only go and fish where the fish are. So if the audiences are here, now you need to figure out, the tech and the analytics comes from figuring out from that base, who are your core audiences, which formats are working better, and amassing an audience base with that, whom you can monetize elsewhere. So let's look at the popularity of a creator online, okay? I'll give you one case study of a band called Sanam that we've been working with for 3 years. How many of you know Sanam band? Raise your hands. Okay, great. It's been improving year on year. So they started with us at 100,000 fans. They're 3.2 million fans on YouTube, okay? But their YouTube money, given what's happened to the ad rates and the supply, and it's no fault of Satya's here, but the point is this, that they can't guarantee the rates. So while they've grown 30x, the money is probably grown 2.5x, okay? 3x maybe. Now, that can't fund a business, but guess what? If they charged 3 lakh rupees to come and perform somewhere, 5 lakh rupees to come and perform somewhere, they today will charge upwards of 50 lakhs to come and perform at a gig. So the online popularity is a digital TRP that you can monetize in a 360 fashion. So if they go and talk to a brand, how do you tell a brand that last year I charged you 30 lakhs or something, this year I'm going to charge you 55 lakhs? Because guess what, last year you were 1 million fans and this year 3 million fans. And so you should be 3x because that is your TRP, but you're only loading it up 100%. So if you look at it from a 360 media model, where you're saying my distribution is asset light, my hosting is asset light, your content production, because in this medium is relatively asset light, of course there's investment there, and then monetize it across different mediums, which would be offline brands and the AVOD revenue streams. You could go onto a platform. So I think the folks that you mentioned who've gone off, they've not gone off YouTube. They're also on other platforms.
Exactly.
And that's what, that's absolutely sensible and smart to be destination and platform agnostic. But their main follower base is there. I feel the other platforms are renting them. It's not their home. And I don't know how much benefit that comes out of it. It's probably an expensive way to do that. But that's the way I see it.
Yeah. So the whole point that we've been making is the fact that there are platforms that are your bread and butter. You can't ignore them. You have to continue living with them. But you can't just forget about your own stuff, your own doing it on your own. Because at some point you have to be confident of taking the plunge and diving down in the ocean and just swimming across and seeing how best you can get the returns.
There's another hour's worth of conversation at least that we could have on the points that everyone's made, but we have got 3 more seconds left on the session. So I'd like to ask another red-green question that will kind of tie it all together. Nobody's happy with the money they're earning. Is the ecosystem that you've built empowered, relevant, technology and people-wise to cope with a fast-changing environment? Are you ready to cope? Are you ready to deal with this? Okay, so in the not really and in the yeses, it's about half-half, would you say? Half-half? Well, and on that note, a lot of
abstainers. No.
There were a lot of abstainers, so you're not sure if you're ready or not. Yeah, most people abstain.
Yeah.
I think that is a huge question, and that Srikant constantly goes through this, what are we going to talk about next year? This is something clearly we can talk about next year. And on that note, thank you very much, guys, for joining us. Thank you so much, and thank you all for joining us.